Hey there. I'm award-winning author Andrew Sweet, and no, I don't always say award-winning when I introduce myself. I just get in the habit of that because I have to self-promote so often. So I am here not to talk about writing, which is what I do love to talk about and do, but unfortunately, we're here to talk about power. And what I mean by that is what the how people perceive power, how power is perceived, and how it can be reinforced. And I'm going to start off with talking about some of the things that I've seen lately that are kind of a little bit, cringeworthy, and move on to how that translate that into a little bit of what we're seeing in the streets. And then I will circle back around and explain what real power is, because I think we as a nation and individually have forgotten a little bit what power actually means. Because we're used to playing these politics games, right? And we have these great movies that always reinforce of the strong person in charge, taking charge or bucking the system or any number of crazy things. So we should ground ourselves and come back to reality a little bit. So I'm going to start in the absurdosphere, as I like to call the magosphere these days. So in the absurdosphere, what I saw was a picture, an obviously AI generated image of Donald Trump wearing a police uniform, wearing a police hat. And I'll see if I can find it and include it in this video for you. And very stern looking, like he's protecting or like he's there as a defender of justice or some other nonsense. So you can see that it was projecting to me, it was laughable because this is like maybe a child's interpretation of what power is. Um, we and early civilizations, we had the same problem. We believed in the divine right of kings. We believed in inherited power and people who have the right to rule versus, having the right people rule. And we had that problem for many, many, many thousands of years. And as a society, as civilization, we've grown up. We don't believe that anymore. Most of us. Most of us. But you still have those people out there who are willing to put together picture images of their God King and send them around, hoping to project him as someone as a believer in justice when we know that he's not. We were there for September 11th. I mean, I remember, and I've got friends at DC still from when I was stationed at Marine Corps Base Quantico. We know what happened on January 6th. It's not like we've forgotten that people were attacking our Capitol Police and attacking our Capitol building. It's not like that nobody forgot that. That's still there. And it's still Donald Trump's fault. And so is the attempted rigging of Georgia. We know that there's no such thing as law and order when you have somebody like this. And so to have him projected that way, it just seems silly and futile and dumb. But there are people in his orbit, obviously, who think that that is what power is, that this autocracy, this centralized power of a dictator, or of even the that the police is where the power lives in society. That's nonsense right there. That should not ever be the case because the police serve a function, and as do the military. And this is what gets me up. And the police serve a function, and that function is to help keep people safe. That's the whole purpose of your police departments. Yeah, there's that whole history about how, back in the day, there were slave patrols that were formed and then to slowly morphed into some of our modern police departments. That's true. That's true. But we've come a long way since then. We've at least come to the point where we pretend not to be attached to our racist origins, which is kind of an interesting little trick there. But my point here is we know that it's not that it's the police don't have power. The police only have power that the people give the police to control. So by yielding and the reason that people yield to the police is because we have this thing that is power called the shared belief in the rule of law. And we believe that that we elect our representatives to represent us, to work for us as citizens. And those representatives then put laws into effect that benefit us as citizens and society as a whole. That is a rational approach to thinking about a democratic-based system. Well, as you can tell by the propaganda on the right now, that's not what and it hasn't been for some time. I've heard interviews where they've been basically said, no, we don't care. The whole point of the election of the democracy was to elect someone who would then take over and run everything, and then we would get rid of the electoral system. Um, that, like, granted, that's some of the more extreme cases. Most people don't say that type of stuff out loud, but you get what I'm saying. All right, so that perception of power is what Trump is selling when he's putting National Guards in the streets of LA, in the streets of DC, threatening to put them in the streets of Chicago. It's that's exactly what the situation is. He wants to project and to reinforce in the minds of the people that are listening, that his followers, that he is delivering law and order to an otherwise unlawful society, not realizing that you can't do law and order that way. That doesn't work. You can't oppress law and order upon your citizens. Because what then happens is, especially in a free society like America, the people rise up, and you're seeing this all the time. You're seeing this at the music festivals around LA and the region in California. You're seeing the street protests that are happening in DC. And do you think Chicago will be any different? No, it won't. My home city of Portland? No. We're out there all the time anyway. It's not going to change anything. It's all it is doing is it's a puppet show performance for people, for little people who have a childlike view of what power is. Now, change that and think about what power, I'm going to pivot real quick to thinking about what power actually is. What power actually is, and it's Jefferson and the Rights of Man. If you read that, take a look. I know Jefferson had some shortcomings, as did a lot of our founding fathers, but when it comes down to it, they were moving in the right direction. And in the Rights of Man, he says, arguing for the side of the French people in the revolution, that it is the people who have the power, and it is always the people who have the power, because you can swap out leadership and leadership and leadership, but the economy will still work to some degree. The people will still look after themselves and their friends and their fellows, and that's something that's unbreakable. It's an unbreakable bond among the French people and among the American people too. We look out for each other. That's what we do. It doesn't matter that's why we don't pay as much attention to what happens in Washington sometimes, because we're busy looking out for that neighbor to our left and to our right, and which is a good thing. That's a good way to be. Unfortunately, we have to lean in now. We have to lean in now because they can, and they're trying to um, break those ties. How? Well, look at Texas. Look at what's happening in Texas, right? Now, if you want an abortion, or if you need an abortion in Texas, what do you do? Well, now you have to lie. You have to lie. You have to lie to everyone you know, because you don't know who in that group circle is going to turn you in. And we've already seen cases where trusted family members have turned in their other family members. And to what end? To what end? But imagine all those trust connections being shattered, all those groups being torn apart, and that's what's happening. And you could easily do stuff like that. And and when you're instituting something like martial law, because all you have to do is make sure that you have an incentive structure that supports people, because that come to your side, and demolishes people that don't, because at a certain point there's a calculation that somebody has to make. And that calculation is my family as important as holding on to this piece of my power, this piece of power that I have? Right. And when that happens, when you're struck with that choice, that Sophie's choice, that dilemma, then what do you do? And that's where a lot of our people are, but we're doing it too early. People are having that mentality too early, because I can tell you, they're they don't outnumber us. MAGA does not outnumber us, and they never will, because that is such a backwards philosophy that there's no way any rational human being can sit there and think that Donald Trump was sent by God to save the America. No, that doesn't even pass the smell test. That's ridiculous. A lot of people right now are tying themselves up in knots intellectually, trying to rationalize that nonsense. Don't make it easy for them. Keep calling it out. And more importantly, we need to show up for things like 5051 on Monday. Why? Because there are also people that look to their left and look to their right, and what they see is they see MAGA. They see MAGA. That's all they see in their neighborhoods because those are the people being the loudest right now. And the others are maybe rightfully so in some neighborhoods, actually. The others are keeping their voices quiet. And that's why we need to show up for things like 5051. That's why we need to show up for the Labor Day protests because we together are going to do two things. One is we're going to turn the cameras of the world back onto the fact that the American people reject this self-declared or wannabe dictator. We need to remind the world that this is not okay with us. That's absolutely a necessity because it's things like that. It's the fact that it's not that most of us are against it is the reason that some of the countries that are doing these retaliatory tariffs are targeting the areas where MAGA live and not some of the other areas. So it's in our best interest to make sure that they know that there are people here that are on their side. There are people here that have not bowed to the God King of the MAGA sphere. That's one. But the other and more important thing that we have to do is those people to your left and to your right, and those people that are out there that are surrounded on all sides by MAGA. Those people need to know that they're not alone. They need to know because they matter too, and they need support. And that support, I don't know if you have ever been in a position where you are the only one who is standing up for something that you believe in. I have. I have. And I think that a lot of us have. But if you haven't, then you should understand that when you are in that position, sometimes the only thing, the only thing that saves you is that you know that someone else out there is supporting you. You know that other people think like you. Sometimes you doubt your own sanity when you're surrounded by these echo chambers and you don't really know how to hold the line. And you're too afraid to speak out. And that's what these things do. They bring courage. We're sharing courage. We're distributing courage among the people. Thank you.